Navya, and welcome to Saving People Testing Things, where I try out everything in the supernatural fandom and bring you along for the ride. But before that, really quick, if you're new here, welcome. I am a brand new supernatural fan, and I've been trying out different things in the fandom and learning about the fandom, and this right here is essentially my fangirl diary. So go check out my other videos, go check out the other series I'm going on, and make sure that you're following me on Instagram to get the latest. Because if you're part of the supernatural family, if you're a fellow fan, then you are absolutely in the right place. Today we're talking about the Bridgewater series, and if you have absolutely no idea what that is, fret not because I've got you. Bridgewater is an audio thriller podcast by Grim and Mild, created by Aaron Menke, and it's been written and directed by Lauren Shippen. I am talking about this series right here. It started off its own sort of Bridgewater universe with sort of subsequent podcasts coming out. The next one after Bridgewater was Consumed, which was also set in the Bridgewater universe. And there was the most recent podcast that has come out is Havoc Town, that came out late last year, so late 2025. And they're all set in the same sort of Bridgewater universe. So I know what you're thinking about. Just because it's a paranormal podcast, which I didn't mention that it is, but good that you know. Just because it's a paranormal podcast does not mean that it's relevant to the fandom or it has anything to do with the fandom, right? Wrong. Because Bridgewater, the main character in Bridgewater, is played none other than the amazing Misha Collins. And we love Misha here, and we love Cass here, so we're definitely going to listen to Bridgewater. So we gotta talk about this cast. So the cast in Bridgewater is so freaking star-studded. So obviously we have Misha Collins as Jeremy Bradshaw. We have Melissa Ponzio as Ann Becker, who's a co-star. And then we have Nathan Fillion in season 1, who plays Thomas Bradshaw, who is Misha's character's dad. But he gets recast in season 2 because I guess Nathan Fillion had some schedule clashes. So guess who replaces him in season 2? No points for guessing, because it's none other than Alan Tudyk. And we need to take a little bit of a tangent here from the cast to talk about the Nathan Fillion Alan Tudyk friendship. And the reason why this is relevant is because all of our fandoms are so freaking interconnected. So if you missed it, by the way, Jensen and Jared were on The Rookie, which is airing right now. Season 8 is airing right now. And oh my god, were they phenomenal! And the fandoms went nuts, by the way, for this particular cameo. But coming back to Nathan Fillion and Alan Tudyk, so I never watched, I was never a big sci-fi person, and I never watched them together on Firefly. But their friendship was they have a podcast together. Obviously they have a podcast together because of all the people in the world who should have a podcast together, they should definitely have a podcast together. And they were on Firefly, and also pretty much every show that either of them have starred in, the other person has had a guest role. For instance, talking about The Rookie again, Nathan Fillion stars in The Rookie, and Alan Tudyk has had a couple of episodes in it's a guest spot, but it's also it's a recurring guest spot because he has been on a couple of episodes in its entirety. And he's so good, and their chemistry is so good. And also, if you haven't listened to Once We Were Spacemen, you should absolutely listen to it, because I've heard it in bits and pieces, and it's really good. But yeah, the lifelong sci-fi friendship that is Nathan Fillion and Alan Tudyk continued into Bridgewater. Okay, back to the cast. We also have Hilary Burton, another sort of extended supernatural family person, and Trisha Helfer and Karan Soni. All again phenomenal actors, and Kristen Bauer and Will Wheaton. So this is just for the cast, this podcast is worth listening to. And there are 2 seasons of it, and after that it got cancelled basically because they never really picked it up for another season. There was some talk about there being a potential show with the Bridgewater cast and things like that, but again, never got picked up, nothing came of it. The originally season 1 aired in 2021, and I think season 2 came out a year or a year and a half later. Season 1 had 10 episodes and season 2 had 12 episodes. So the format was really interesting. It was set up in a really cool way. But yeah, I'm going to try to talk about Bridgewater without spoiling it for anyone who wants to listen to it, but I'll do a spoiler zone. So if you don't want to listen to that bit of my video, if you don't want any spoilers, just skip past that bit and go straight on. So the show starts off pretty much like a murder mystery, it's set up that way. So you have Jeremy Bradshaw, who is a folklore professor living in the Bridgewater Triangle, which a lot of people, present company included, thought was a fictional space, but no, it's for real. It's northern Massachusetts and Connecticut and those that region. There's area that's called the Bridgewater Triangle, where a lot of people see like paranormal stuff. So people see ghosts, people have these like otherworldly experiences, people see Sasquatch, things like that. So you have the Bridgewater Triangle, and Jeremy is a professor, a folklore professor, which is just, Misha plays it so perfectly, because in order to be like, I'm an academic and I felt so seen by him playing an academic. So yeah, it was great. Like he passes like the I need to be critical and skeptical vibe because I'm a scientist kind of a vibe. Like that comes off perfectly. 10 on 10, no notes. Right. So coming back to Misha and coming back to Jeremy and Bridgewater. It starts off as a mystery because Jeremy's father has been missing for 40 years. So they never found the body, and they suspected that his dad was a cop. So he came across some cult activity happening in Bridgewater, and basically he was a human sacrifice as a part of that cult activity. At least that's the theory that the police have. Because in the 70s when he went missing, in the 70s or the 80s when he went missing, there was a cult called the Children of Tituba, and they were known for, doing a lot of human sacrifice. So that's kind of where the story gets started, and it's really interesting because like as you go through it, it's set up like sort of like a murder mystery. So you're like following the clues, and Jeremy, there's this new sort of, his dad's badge has been unearthed, so it's been found where he went missing, or not where he went missing, but like in the area itself. That's also like a point of like contention. Like he thought he went missing somewhere else, but he went missing somewhere else. So he starts investigating, and he starts working with his dad's partner from back in the day, who is Ann Becker. So they start working together, and then as they start working together, as they start like solving this mystery, there's a lot of different things about his dad's past that start coming out slowly. So who he was as a person, what he was investigating specifically, like why he was interested in this, and the specifics of what was happening back in the 80s start coming out. And Jeremy just kind of works his way through all of the clues, and that's basically most of what season 1 is. And helping him along is his TA, played by Karan Soni, Vipin. And Vipin and Jeremy just kind of work through some of the clues that they get, and they use their knowledge of folklore and they use their interest in folklore to guide them along the way. So it is very obvious that it's more than like, it's not normal circumstances, but the paranormalness of it doesn't become super clear until the second season. So everything feels a little strange, but it's not revealed why it feels a little strange until like basically the end of the first season and the beginning of the second season, which makes it really interesting because it feels like a realistic story. On to the spoiler bit. So if you don't want to listen to the spoilers, if you want to keep this spoiler free for yourself before you actually go and like listen to Bridgewater, then skip past this section and go to the next one. All right, on to the spoiler bits. So at the end of season 1, as they're working through these clues, as they are trying to retrace Thomas's last steps, they run into at the end of season 1, as Jeremy and Vipin and Anne are solving this case, they come across a witch. An actual witch. Yeah, I have no other way of putting that. That's not really a spoiler. She just calls herself a witch. I mean, there are a lot of witches and Wiccans in the real world as well. So it's not really. She's not a Rowena kind of a witch. She's more like someone who thinks of like the Wicca in a more spiritual sense. And I guess she does believe in magic. So they come across a witch who has been in the area for, again, a really long time. She is part of the. She's part of the bigger sort of, so the Children of Tituba was sort of like an offshoot of a bigger cult. And they kind of have these beliefs about this world and the other world, and they feel that there's like some sort of like gateway between the human world and like another sort of magical realm. It sounds a bit like, now that I put it like this, it sounds a bit like woo, but it's not. It's framed really well, because you are looking at this entire story from the perspective of Jeremy, who is a skeptic, but who is also a folklore professor. So he really believes that people believe in certain things, and he knows that those beliefs can stem from like different societal and cultural and social experiences. So we have, Jeremy, Anne, and Vipin run into this witch who says that essentially 40 years ago, she was accidentally a part of the Children of Tituba. She was really young back then, and she was just kind of like starting out and like trying to find her way in this space. And by the time she realized that they were planning on making a human sacrifice, it was too late. And Jeremy's dad, so Thomas, kind of came at the wrong place at the wrong time, and he was trying to stop the human sacrifice from happening. But instead, they actually did manage to open a portal through their human sacrifice. And instead of the pre-planned human sacrifice happening, Thomas became the accidental human sacrifice. But because he was an unwilling sacrifice, it was kind of not, it was not correct. And like, I guess the spell didn't like hold the way it was supposed to hold. And there was a lot of like bleeding out of this, the portal, wherever the portal was leading to, there was a lot of bleeding out between that world and the real world. So that's where season one kind of like leaves you basically. And so what the witch is trying to do is, who's called Celeste, what Celeste is trying to do is she's trying to open the portal just enough to let Thomas's spirit sort of like pass through to the other side, whatever the hell that means. As she does this spell, she does open the portal and she falls into the portal, and or at least everyone thinks she falls into the portal, but she basically kind of trades places with Thomas. So Thomas kind of comes back after 40 years. The start of season 2 kind of focuses on the fact that he's not supposed to be here, and that's kind of like messing with the reality of the situation. It's messing with the gateways, and the place where he was is trying to like suck him back into it. And yeah, that's kind of where season 2 kind of kicks off. And through season 2, it's more about kind of answering these questions that season 1 sets up, which is that what's really happening, what are the laws of this world, like how does it function, how does it tie into things we already know about the real world. So what we learned through the course of season 1 is, again, spoilers, but you know that already, which is why you're watching this part of the video. What happens in season 2 is that we learn that our world is connected to a fairy world through like this liminal space. So there's like a liminal, it's like kind of like a gateway between our world and like the fairy realm. And so in order to keep both sort of worlds separate and happy, essentially, there need to be two souls in this liminal space. At least that's the idea that humans believe. So there are these. So the cult that Celeste was a part of, it's like sort of like they're the gatekeepers. At least they're self-appointed gatekeepers, and they kind of just exist in different parts of the world, especially where the veil is thin. And so they kind of make sure that there are two souls at all times. And the Children of Tituba, which was the offshoot of this gatekeeper cult, basically wanted to open the gates. So like all of them, right? And there's no telling what might happen. At least that's what the gatekeeper cult was trying to say. So yeah. So Thomas accidentally falls in, and he becomes one of the souls in the liminal space. And that's pretty much it. Like, that's the story. And as we go through season 2, we get like a lot more answers about like how things work. And Trisha Helfer, who comes into season 2, starts off by being a legend tripper. So she is someone who like chases legends in the world, like a paranormal tourist essentially. But eventually, and she has a EMF reader like Sam. It's very cute. But eventually, it comes to light that she's one of the rulers of the Fae Kingdom, and she wants Jeremy. And it also there are a lot of things that are set up in season 1 with Jeremy's past, and why Thomas was specifically interested in the things that he was interested in. Like, why was he interested in this cult? Like, why was he interested? Because there were, in the 80s, also people were going missing, and Thomas was really interested in that. And the reason Thomas was interested in that is because Jeremy was one of the kids who had gone missing. So it kind of sheds a lot more light on like Jeremy's past as well, some of the experiences he had, and of course, because he's the main character, he's special in a number of different ways, and so it also kind of goes through that. And the usual fish out of water. Thomas is not supposed to be here. Jeremy hasn't seen his dad for 40 years, and now suddenly he has a dad. So just navigating those dynamics. Jeremy's dad and Anne were a couple, and so Jeremy's dad, Thomas, he was going to divorce his mom and get together with Anne, and Jeremy was meant to live with Anne, and he used to spend a lot of time with Anne as a kid, even though when we first meet Anne, Jeremy has no idea who she is. So this is sort of like an interesting dynamic, because now there's kind of a family, the kind of family they should have been 40 years ago, except Anne is now like in her 80s. Jeremy is like in his 40s, and his dad Thomas is like younger than him. So there's this like weird like situation going on, and like yeah, no one has any idea how to like navigate these family dynamics. And Anne's daughter is actually played by Hilary Burton, and she plays Shelley, who is also Thomas's daughter. So like she's Anne and Thomas's daughter. So she's Jeremy's half sister. So again, she doesn't know about any of this stuff, and now suddenly she has to deal with a dad that she didn't know she had, who's now younger than her, a half brother, and a mom who basically lied about everything. So that's also quite interesting. I think what makes Bridgewater really special is the writing. Lauren Shippen does a phenomenal job, and if you don't know who Lauren Shippen is, like go like look her up. She's a true blue fandom person. She is very much part of the supernatural fandom, and she has written something that I feel is very much in line with what the fandom would appreciate. She's a great writer. Her dialogues stand out because it's all voice acting. It's all sort of just dialogue. So if you don't have good dialogue, the story just kind of falls flat. And like the story itself is really interesting, and the characters are really appealing, and you want to get to know them more, and you want to see their dynamics play out more. I mean, season 2 is basically just a character driven plot, because yes, you do get a lot of answers to stuff that's set up in season 1, but more than that, it's just about seeing the characters interact, and like all of the actors just do the best job. Moving from that to something like Havoc Town or even Consumed, which I think Consumed was the one that followed immediately after, which was marketed to be set in the Bridgewater universe. I think it was a big letdown. I haven't listened to Havoc Town because I listened to Consumed right after I finished Bridgewater, because I felt that it would fill that Bridgewater void that I had, because I really enjoyed listening to Bridgewater and I binged the whole thing. So I instantly also wanted to listen to Consumed. Consumed, by the way, has Ruth Connell, who's one of my favorite people ever, and Jen Padalecki. So it's not like the cast was like not supernaturally enough for me. But yeah, even though the voice acting was good, I felt like the writing fell flat. The characters weren't interesting, and because of no fault of the actors, obviously. It's just that the dialogue wasn't standing out, the chemistry wasn't there. It didn't feel as interesting and effortless as Bridgewater did. I think from a point of like, Bridgewater was so good, it was so interesting, it really kept you on your toes. Like there were so many twists and turns to the story, even when the story was primarily character driven, that there's no comparison to it. And even though Consumed felt like it had the right pieces, like it did have a good cast, and it was again a grim and mild podcast, it just, yeah, the writing was just not there. It wasn't there to the point where it was interesting enough. It also is kind of set in the same space where you have like a lot of supernaturally things happening, and like a lot of paranormal stuff happening, but there's no explanation as to why. And it's set in like a small town where everybody knows everybody, which is not necessarily the case in Bridgewater. But yeah, you have again a lot of characters, and something fishy is happening, something paranormally is happening, but it's more paranormal driven rather than the way Bridgewater was set up, which is like, this is a mystery, stuff is happening, things are strange, and oh my god, it's paranormal. Like the fact that it's paranormal is not a driving force of the story, or that it's supernatural is not a driving force of the story. The driving force of the story is the characters and their interaction with each other, and how sort of the people tie into the supernatural parts of things. So comparing for me Bridgewater and Consumed, like even though they say that Consumed is set in the same water as Bridgewater, in the same universe as Bridgewater, I don't think that they're set in the same universe, because they are miles apart. Like they barely share anything. They don't even share story elements. So I have absolutely no idea. I think it was just sort of a cheap ploy to capitalize on the Bridgewater audience and to tell them, hey, here's something that could fill your void, except it doesn't. So that's kind of where I left it. I never reached Havoc Town because I was just so disappointed with Consumed after Bridgewater. But I highly recommend Bridgewater, because I think that Bridgewater is one of the best podcasts that I've listened to in a really long time, especially one of the best like scripted podcasts. So go check it out. Tell me what you think about it, and let me know if you binged it in like a couple of days, just like I did. That's a wrap on this week's Saving People Testing Things. Thank you for liking, sharing, and commenting on this video, and I will see you next time.